So, did WrestleMania, that happened, that was a thing.
Part 1.
Yeah, part 1.
Oh, it's a 2-part thing?
Yeah. They went back to 2 nights like they used to do back. Well, I guess they did it like for a few back in the beginning.
Yeah.
But they went back to 2 nights. Main evented with Stone Cold was the main event last night. And
I would like to call it a co-main event.
Hey,
since Charlotte was wrestling before that, and Charlotte's always the main event.
did you see Ric Flair?
I don't know these references. What's a Charlotte? Hey, Craig,
Flair's
scoot your microphone up just a little bit.
How about if I scoop myself up?
That'll work too, as long as your face is closer to the microphone.
So, I feel like it's right in my face. It's been a minute since
That's what he said.
Yeah, right. So, Ric Flair tweeted that it was the best, most realistic wrestling match he had ever seen.
So it was really good. I mean, if the first time they wrestled at a WrestleMania, Rousey and Charlotte Flair was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
This one was also really, really good. I loved the ending. My girlfriend was incensed by the ending.
So in reference, there was a reason I asked you the question I asked last night.
Yeah.
She was mad because it was a distraction.
It was in her words, she cheated.
Yes.
She's not a champion. She cheated.
Which
Charlotte.
Charlotte. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. She didn't win. She cheated. And I was like, then why does she have the belt?
And I specifically asked you last night when you texted me that she was upset. How long has she been watching wrestling? Because this is just part of wrestling.
She's completely never watched it. So watching that ending, it was really actually pretty awesome to see, because that's like how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
But if you're a weathered old wrestling fan, who's, like you're like,
you expect
I'm like,
this
is amazing. The heat
like,
this is
okay.
going to bring. But meanwhile, she's just, she couldn't have been more pissed.
I would love to be a fly on the wall while these conversations are happening at Casa de Trogdon, as you're just like, like just kind of calmly explaining it, but also like twisting the thumb screws just a little bit. Yeah.
Winners win, babe.
That and the other women's match was amazing. Bianca and Becky.
Yeah, man.
That was a great match.
Yeah.
But then, so they brought out Stone Cold for the main event, which, with it being 2 nights, you don't really have a main event for that night. So they bring him out because he's get the biggest pop of anybody.
Nobody can follow him.
You can't follow Stone Cold, especially in Texas.
Yeah,
right?
the dude's a legend. Yeah, because it's being done in Arlington, right?
Dallas. Yeah, it's in
Cowboy Stadium. Yeah.
So
AT&T Stadium.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called, in front of 75,000 people. I can't imagine the surrealness of having to go out and wrestle in front of that many people.
Yeah.
Even if you've been doing it your whole life, you got to think most of these people started in a gym in front of 20 people, in a high school gym, and now they're wrestling in front of 75,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
But so Stone Cold came out, got a huge pop. It started off as a conversation in the chairs, and Kevin Owens just invited him to fight him.
Yeah.
And Stone Cold took him up on that offer.
He extended the invitation.
Yeah.
Well, he did it through bad-mouthing Texans in Texas. And
so you're just being the heel. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy heat, right? That's what I call it when you go into a town and you start.
It's old school heat, though.
It's old school, easy heat. You go in, it's easy to get the booze because you're bad-mouthing the locals.
Yeah.
And, Stone Cold being a Texan didn't take kindly to it. And
shattered the glass and broke out a can of whoop ass, huh? As he used to did.
At first, I thought it was just going to be he was just going to stand up and stun him, and that would be the end of it, because he really has no business wrestling anymore.
Risky business.
Yeah, wrestling gave him everything and took everything from him at the same time.
Yeah.
But it was giving him a lot.
Yeah.
It has given him a lot.
I would really like to know how many T-shirts were bought last night and will be bought this week based on him showing up.
Yeah.
I legit would like to know.
Our co-host, occasional co-host Lily, my daughter-in-law, is there with my dad.
Very cool.
And so I texted her and I said, "Hey, don't go out of your way, but if you happen by a merch table and you see that Stone Cold T-shirt, get it for me in my size and I'll pay you back." 5 minutes later, because it was the end of the night, she goes, Yeah, they're completely sold out. She goes, I'll be back tomorrow to check because they said they'd have more tomorrow. So, which is today.
That's amazing.
Completely sold out of the
Love it,
Stone
man.
Cold t-shirt.
Well, I mean, but like you said though, they'll probably have some tonight. So imagine they've got some allocated for tonight, and they just didn't break them out. I would hope so. Like surely they didn't just like blow their entire
they'll
wad.
print more, and you can order them on their website. I'm sure.
But, but think about how many they
it's
had
printing
on hand.
money. Yeah.
They they quote over ordered.
Yeah.
And they still blew them out.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Dude, so it was fun. So I was actually in that stadium 2 weeks ago when we went and toured it because I'm a Cowboys fan and I was in Dallas. So and it was empty. Like there's nothing there. There's nobody in that building but us doing the tours. And you lose scope of how big that building is. And our buddy Flippa is there also, and he was sending me pictures and stuff last night. And it is insane. Like it looks like in a totally different arena. Once you start like putting people in seats, you just start to understand the magnitude of how big that building is. That's also where they have the Rose Bowl and stuff. Yeah. So it was funny. She was telling our tour guide was telling us the
Rose Bowl is supposed to be in Pasadena.
I think it's the Rose Bowl.
Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl. That's what. Yeah, no, Cotton Bowl. You're right. Yeah.
The Rose Bowl.
No,
Texas,
Cotton Bowl.
There's a problem.
I offended Craig's California sensibilities.
Take a sip of Mountain Dew, Craig.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
No, it's not. Not if they move the Rose Bowl out of Pasadena. It's not.
No, Cotton Bowl. But she was talking about one of their like big events that they had. Like they pushed the limits of something. Like major event. Everybody seats, standing room only. They served like 15 tons of popcorn. Like 15 tons of popcorn.
A ton of popcorn is a lot of. Think of how light popcorn.
Yeah, and a ton is for those of you who don't know, a ton is 2,000 pounds. Like that's a
gigaton. They sold a gigaton. I don't know how much a gigaton is, but we're going to call it that.
Well, hey everybody! Now that we're this is the Southern Fried Geekery podcast, and today we're going to talk about weights and ratios. Here we're going to talk about what things weigh. What's heavier, a pound of feather or a pound of cotton? Trick question. Dun. This is episode 223, and now that I've got my co-hosts here all riled up talking about wrestling, I'm going to see if I can convince one of them to suplex the other one here in just a minute, just for funsies.
Well, it's not as much fun because this table is meant to bend in half.
Yeah, but not the other way. Not the way that it would bend if one of you slammed the other one into it. I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And that's the most wrestling I've talked about like in 4 years, so I appreciate that. Thank you guys.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Now, look, I'm flawed. I am. That's just not a...
I will say that you were talking about the venue, and... I'll say this and we'll be done with wrestling. Matt and I are both AEW fans as well. But the production that WWE puts on for WrestleMania is second to none.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Oh, and it has been.
Electric ramps. And, I mean, the production they put on for WrestleMania is second to none. And while I watch more AEW than I do WWE, it's because of the weekly content that draws me to AEW. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. The production value is freaking amazing for WWE, for their pay-per-views, specifically WrestleMania.
Well, it's got to maintain. Like, it's got to maintain its status quo,
Well, it's definitely, quote-unquote, the Super Bowl of wrestling.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the Super Bowl of wrestling, but this podcast is basically...
Awkward segue.
Basically... the AEW of comic book podcasts on a weekly basis, just delivering the hits. I don't know. We got to talk about comics at some point, right?
Awkward segue.
We are back. We want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Hopefully, you guys all watched WrestleMania with my cohorts this past week, or weekend yesterday, and tonight. As you're listening to this, I don't know. Time works.
What is
weird.
time?
It's flat circle, from what I understand. But if you did,
I guarantee we have at least 2 or 3 wrestling fans.
You should kick off a wrestling thread on our Facebook group. I feel like you're the one
to get on Facebook.
I know.
Anymore.
I know. It's just me.
Why would you wish that upon you?
It's just because I don't want to be the one to post it, because I'll be like, hey, this bald guy that you all seem to know did a thing. Clap for him. But yeah, no, it's good stuff. So let's dive into the comics. I would love to hear about 3 things just to kind of get our appetites going, wet our whistles. Tell me about 3 books you guys read this week that you enjoyed.
I almost did it again this week and almost went with one book that I read multiple issues of. I read over 50 chapters of One Piece this week trying to get caught up in that.
How long
book.
is a chapter?
It's about 17 pages.
Yeah.
Good God.
So, yeah, it's about the same as a comic book. They read a little bit quicker than a comic.
Well, they're done weekly, right?
They're done weekly. So,
yeah.
I read a year's worth of One Piece
Nice.
this week. And I'm still a year's worth of One Piece behind.
Yeah.
So, continues to just be an outstanding story. It's Ichiro Oda is the creator. It's kind of heading toward a culminating of the entire story at this point. I mean, you can see the end in sight, which at some point I didn't think I would ever see the end in sight.
I don't believe in Caleb.
He said he was at the halfway point like 4 years ago.
No, he said that
No, I remember that.
10 years ago, he said there was 10 years left.
Okay, gotcha.
And 5 years ago, he said 5 years left.
How
but we're
big
not
is
that
this
close.
One Piece?
Apparently, we got the answer to that in what I read this week.
Ooh.
A lot of apparentlys and feels like and
There's no telling because here's the deal. They'll start a battle and then they'll stop and give you 20 chapters of backstory on why this battle is important. So, but it's good stuff. It's good writing. So it's not,
Lord.
Anyways, I'll go on to something else now. I also read,
segues.
It was better than
Indeed.
wrestling segue.
Facts.
Ghost Cage by Nick Dragotta and Caleb Goldner. Have either of you read this? Oh, it's on your book, on your list.
Yeah.
This is a not so subtle take on corporate America fucking with people over fuel and electricity and that sort of thing. But Nick Dragotta's art is absolutely the bomb, as the kids would say. If you read East of West, you would know that.
Yeah.
But absolutely, it's a great book. It's a lot of fun. Yes, it's in your face. It's not so subtle, but it's done well. All of the old energies take a form of a monster, and the new energy is fighting its way through the old energies to take its place at the top, literally. I hope that wasn't your book of the week.
It is, but you didn't say anything I can't talk about.
Okay.
So,
Loaded Bible. Did you?
Someone tried to sell me on this book.
So it's Steve Orlando and Tim Seeley. Tim Seeley automatically sells me on it. Giuseppe, I don't know. Cafaro is the artist, and Josh Rodriguez is the colorist. Fabio Emilian, Maurizio Clossi are the letters. This is a book, and apparently this is book 2. I didn't know there was a previous volume till recently. It's a book about a clone Jesus fighting vampires.
huh.
And specifically, Dracula is now in charge of the church.
Okay.
Dracula is the Red Pope, as they call him now. And cloned Jesus has set up a sanctuary and is killing vampires. And at the end gets bit by a vampire. So that was a thing that happened.
Okay.
So
That's
And the room goes silent.
I can tell you this. It's actually pretty good.
I feel like Jesus would have some like moral quandaries about using crosses to kill people.
He doesn't use a cross. He uses a lightsaber type sword.
Okay.
That he calls the Magdalene.
Duh, Caleb.
Oh. Should have seen that coming. No, I'm just
It's a very tongue-in-cheek look at the church and its flaws, specifically the Catholic Church and its flaws.
I've always felt they've been just taking a much too neutral stance on vampires. I'm glad it's being addressed.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that for a second. I'm so glad
he silenced me. So that was a thing. It's not tongue-in-cheek like Mark Russell's take on the church. It's a more serious take, but it is very much not meant to be taken seriously.
This is the second or third vampire book that Tim Seeley has written in a little bit, because he was, I want to say he was part of doing like the White Wolf stuff that was coming out from Vault, the vampire book that was there, and then he wrote another book that
the red something.
Yeah. And,
with the redneck vampire in Texas. Yeah.
So he's just feeling his vampires
also
lately.
redneck.
No, he had to fight
thing.
like monster Nazis things.
Yeah.
So it was it's a good, like Tim Seeley is a good writer, and he's not necessarily an automatic draw for me, but he's somebody I'll pick up more often than not. And then I like Steve Orlando too.
Well, so Tim Seeley sold me with Hackslash.
Yeah.
And since then I've always been a fan. So
Keeping it rolling.
It's not. I'm not going to say everything's a hit. But
yeah,
he's a lot more hits.
He's a
nobody
bats
1,000.
Yeah, he's a fun writer. He really is.
Yeah. What did you say, Matt?
Nobody bats 1,000.
No, and he doesn't. But I enjoy a lot more than I dislike.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what'd you get read this week, brother?
So 3 of my things that I read. First on my short stack is Ghost Rider from Marvel. This is number 2. By Benjamin Piercy as the writer. And then there are a lot of artists on this book. You have Corey Smith and Brent Peoples listed as artists. Then you have Roberto Poggi, Oren Jr., and Brent Peoples as inkers. Then Brian Valenza as the colorist. So big art team on this book.
Yeah.
I did not know Brent Peoples was on that book. He's a good dude.
He is
personally.
Yeah. I don't think he was on the first issue.
No, he wasn't.
I don't believe he was. I don't remember seeing his name in there. So this is just, continuing the new adventures of Ghost Rider, basically. And it's interesting. It's just, this is basically about his, renewed and eternal struggle with the spirit of vengeance. And what he's running into. He runs into a H.P. Lovecraftian monster on the road. But it's like, is he being drawn to these as the spirit of vengeance, or is he just kind of interesting to see where this is going to go?
Right.
So fun fact, Brent Peoples did Major X.
Yeah, with the Rob Liefeld. But that's the last book I saw him on, I think.
Maybe. And I have the art page that has the first appearance of Major X.
Oh, that's very cool.
Well, what was supposed to be the first appearance before Marvel screwed Rob Liefeld.
No comment. So, segues. From AWA Upshot, issue number 3 of 4 of The Fourth Man. This is, of course, the writer is Jeff McComsey, artist is Mike Deodato Jr., colorist is Lee Lowridge, lettering is Steve Wands. Man, this is a great crime story. This is a great crime story. It's just told really, really well.
I haven't read AWA in a second because of what's been going on, but man, everything they were putting out previous to that was killing it. So I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is only one more issue left, and I'm kind of bummed because it's just been a really solid
I feel that way with all their stuff because they're all 5-issue stories and they're kind of one and done. Sometimes they go back, but man, at the end of them, you always feel like, I wish this would keep going.
Yeah, and to kind of sell people on this, it's based on a true story. 2 rival car dealerships. One owner decides he wants the other one killed. Quote, hires a guy to do it. Then that guy hires a guy. Then that guy hires a guy. Nobody wants to be the trigger man.
You can't outsource murder.
Apparently you can.
Not well.
That's how you get caught.
So, and it reminds me very, very much of a Coen Brothers crime movie.
Yeah.
It's got a Fargo feel to it. No doubt about it.
Very cool.
Thirdly, on my short stack, I went back and read from the Devil's Reign storyline, X-Men. This is 1 of 3 by Jerry Duggan and Phil Noto. The gist of this is that, we are in the world where Wilson Fisk is the mayor of New York. He's outlawed vigilantism. As a reminder, in the X-Men storyline, we have the treehouse in New York. He done caught into that. So he's trying to use what he thinks is leverage that he has over Emma Frost to get them out.
Oh, that's a mistake.
Doesn't go so well. The storyline also involves Elektra. Just really cool stuff. There's a great moment where one of Craig's favorite characters, U.S. Agent, shows up, and and they've been giving him the job to vacate the treehouse, and he throws his shield at the tree. Of course, Polaris just bing
you know.
And he just watches his shield fly away, and he goes, "I hate these freaks."
Yeah, so in fairness to me, that was the only number one that was out that week. So it's not my fault that the comic industry screwed us that week.
See the archives, kids.
Go back and Control F that.
References.
To be fair, I like some things that U.S. Agent shows up. And I'm reading the John Byrne Avengers book right now, and U.S. Agent is in that, and he's fun.
Yeah. Oh, U.S. Agents. You know, in this.
Yeah, I like U.S. Agent as a side character. I don't want him as the main character in the book.
No.
Show up and do some stupid stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a book that we read.
It was a book that we read.
Mark that off the list. You can't, like you said, nobody bats 1,000. You can't win them all. It's just that book was.
I mean, again, as we're about to roll in, well, you've got your short stack, but we're about to roll into our roundtable book here in a second. We don't read these ahead of time of deciding if we're going to talk.
No,
about
for
them
sure.
or
No,
not.
absolutely.
So sometimes we're going to pick crappy books.
Yeah.
And then we're stuck talking about a crappy book.
That was one of those times.
Yeah.
It had its moment. There were things about it. Like, dude, it's one of those things. Before I get my short stack, like, we love this hobby. We love this medium. And specifically, we like the X-Men, and we like comics, and we like Marvel, that universe, and we're all fanboys at the end of the day, right? Like, if you're a fan of something, even if it's something you read that's bad, there's something you can find that's good in that, right? Like if you there's people that will sometimes. You're a Star Wars fan, right? I mean, the Star Wars fandom's kind of famous for shitting on Star Wars of the last 15 years or 20 years. Like
a section of the Star Wars fan.
Well, yes, but then that's where I challenge the fact that those people are quote unquote actual fans, because even if you don't like something, like whether the prequels or the newest movies, there are things in those that you can pull out that are enjoyable, right? Like if you can't find anything
like less than 30% of something,
then you're not a fan of it. You're not a fan of it.
That's just it's okay to say I liked it at one point and it's moved off from me.
Unless you're a Cowboys fan, because you can dislike
sports.
You can like less than 30% of the Cowboys and still maintain that you're a fan.
You're a fan of the pajamas, not the players.
It's a love-hate. It's a love-hate relationship. So this week I had an opportunity. I'm still playing catch up a little bit. I read the latest chapter of Jeff Lemire's Black Hammer Universe series. That is the Black Hammer Reborn. That's kind of what's going on with it right now. This was drawn by Caitlin Yarsky, Dave Stewart on the colors, and Nate Picos on the letters. I really enjoyed this book. The Black Hammer, as we know her now, is this it's this woman. It's the original Black Hammer's daughter, and now she's grown up. She had a family that got taken away from her, and alternate universes are playing a role. And there is a different version of her father who's using her longing to get her family back, and that's pretty cool. Not only is it cool graphics and stuff like that, but it's cool to see this story develop and move through time. And then I also read the latest chapter of a series that I'm really, really, really enjoying. And that is number 5 of the Girl Scouts Stone Ghost. This is a comic by Jim Mahfood. Even if I weren't following the story, even if the story didn't matter, Jim Mahfood's artwork is worth looking at just any day of the week. Fortunately, the story is really, really fucking cool. It's just this girl named Dio, and like her boyfriend got killed, and all she wants is his ashes back, but she gets thrown into this big galactic fight. And there was a dude, because we read the first issue of this, there was a guy, an assassin, a bodyguard, whatever, mercenary named Turtleneck Jones, who died hard, but Turtleneck Jones did not die. He is back. So we are getting more Turtleneck Jones.
Is this your first foyer, how do you say that word?
Foyer?
Yeah, into Girl Scouts?
No, I read the original stuff. Yeah, the one about the socks. Yeah, I forget what they,
okay.
Like I know the socks isn't the title, but
yeah,
no, I read that.
Which I think is like the third book of the series.
Yes, and they've
done in multiple books.
This actually ties into that.
Does it?
So
okay.
yeah, it's going to. So they reference that book several times. It's all the same universe.
Okay.
All the same world, and in this the actual.
Foyer. Thank you.
They loop into that, and they're going to meet.
I was going to say foyer, which is a completely
different thing.
It's also an entrance into.
To be fair, I mean, it all comes from the original Latin, right? So
it all means entrance.
Yeah.
There's
that French. It's French or Latin. It's got its
French
roots somewhere.
A Latin language.
It is romantic language. Yeah.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Yep. Here we go. Hey, look. we kicked this off talking about numbers. Now we're going to talk about language and what was it? Verbiage. So that one's just for you, Chris. All right, and then last
fuckage.
Oh, the fuckery. Last but not least, over at Image Comics, the third chapter of Aerosmith Behind Enemy Lines. Dude, I have fallen in love with this series. It is incredibly cool. This is written by Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco. Rafael Fonteras on the inks. Jose Villaruba does the colors. And Tyler Smith and Jimmy Betancourt do the letters on it. Our man is still, like the title says, behind enemy lines in this encampment. He's a spy. He's found the dude that he's looking for, and they plan an escape. The escape does not go the way that he thinks it wants to, and he quickly realizes that the dude he is there just broke out is playing on a whole nother level. They travel through another realm. There are things that try to eat them. He gets his dragonette back. Dude, it's fucking cool. The hardcover collection of the original Aerosmith is on its way to me. I cannot wait.
And for those of you wondering, it's Arrow, ARROW, not AERO.
Yeah, not the band.
Yeah. No toys in this attic. Just dragons. So, well, all right. Are any of y'all reading this?
No.
Oh, dude, you should. It's fun stuff. It's
Again,
Kurt Busiek kicking all kinds of ass. Like it's
yeah,
great.
I mean, in fairness, it's one of those that probably got skipped because I was not picking my own books for a minute.
Yeah, that's true. Craig hates dragons. It's on record.
Yeah, something like that.
Canonical.
I do hate
Canonical. Well, all right, you guys ready to talk about this book that we read this week?
Ready.
I'm super excited. So we got together as we
Of
wont
course you are.
to do.
It's a super wordy book.
And it is Sinister.
Sinister.
It's Sassy Sinister. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
No, we got together like we always do. We picked a book. We decided we would all read it concurrently, and then we talk about it on the show. And it'd be we'd kind of bounce ideas off each other and see what each other thinks. This book, we decided to wade into the Marvel waters and check out what's going on in the world of the X-Men, because we don't do that very often. Not nearly enough. Just not enough X-Men to talk about.
Agreed.
Just doesn't happen. So
If it were Matt's decision, we'd talk about X-Men every week.
that is a valid point. And we probably could have. We could literally just talk about X-Men books. None of us would run out, and we would have a new book to talk about.
There are podcasts out there that do nothing but X-Men.
Oh, Jay and Miles explain the X-Men. That's literally their bread and butter.
Yep.
This week, the latest chapter of the X-Men debuted. That is Immortal X-Men #1, prominently featuring, I should say, the best member of the Quiet Council, Sassy Sinister himself, and kind of giving you an insight into the machinations and the political intrigue of the Quiet Council. What's going on with them? This book was written, in my opinion, really well written by Mr. Kieran Gillen. Lucas Wernick on the art. David Curiel did the colors. Clayton Cowles did the letters. And again, with an X book, I still feel like you have to give credit to the design, because there's always somebody credited as the designer, and Tom Muller did that with a gorgeous wraparound cover by Mark Brooks featuring all the members of the Quiet Council. Just like we do, if it ain't
cover, just while you brought that up, is very much a Last Supper.
Oh yeah. It is.
It's a great
Last
cover, man.
Supper cover. I just wanted to point that out. So.
No, and there's all kinds of really cool things happening in the background
Imagery,
of it too. If you like, just some really neat stuff. Like, I love that you've got Cyclops and Jean's masks on the floor. Like, there's these little things that are nods to what's going to happen in this book. So just real quick, tell me what you guys like. Give me the 30,000 foot view. How did this book treat you all? Other than, like Craig said, it's wordy.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than being wordy, which is okay because it's what I would call a TV book or a dinner book where you have to sit around and tell what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a plot book. Because not everything can just be action. Sometimes you need to explain what's going on,
Especially with X-Men.
Yeah. And that's what this book is. Very, very well done. I love that it was all through Sinister's point of view. Was pretty amazing. The art is absolutely beautiful in it. I enjoyed it. I have zero complaints about this book. In fact, I would say if you were peripherally involved in the X-Men prior to this book, it's a great jumping on point for where the X-Men is going to go from here.
Mm-hmm.
If you just have a Wikipedia knowledge of the Hickman X-Men stuff, you would be fine jumping on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. I mean, I really liked it. It is text heavy. There's no doubt about it, but it's written well. I love the artwork in it. Man, the artwork is freaking great. And it's easy to overlook that because all the artwork and all the X storylines has been outstanding.
Right.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I really had to make myself take time to appreciate the artwork in this book because I've gotten so used to it being outstanding.
Yeah.
But, man, all the character designs are great. The storytelling and everything just killed
I would say it's hard to find follow up Francis Lionel Yu, but they're doing it very well.
Yeah. Or Pepe Larraz. Or
I mean,
any
it's
of
just
them,
all these guys, these artists have just been killing it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I really like the book, and I absolutely love the last 2 pages.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to co-sign. And I will say, I know what you guys mean about the fact that it's wordy, but this book was so fun to read. Like, the wordiness didn't bother me. Like, it wasn't, there are some books where they are wordy, and it just feels like a slog. It feels like you're reading prose.
Yeah, for sure.
This book read really fast, considering the amount of words that there are to read on the page.
It wasn't a complaint other than I was trying to get a lot of books read this morning.
For sure.
And it slowed me down immensely in that, but that happens sometimes. But the book, it's wordy not for the need of being wordy. It's wordy for the need of telling the story.
Yeah, it's doing some lifting. And with X books, too, you've got these blocks of prose writing or lists or things, too, that kind of slow you down and make you read. But no, I thought it was fantastic. I really do feel like...
read the prose in the X-Men book?
I do, yeah.
I'm playing.
Some people don't. Honestly, you don't have to. It just gives you some, it's like nuggets.
Gives you background stuff,
it gives you little Easter eggs into stuff, what's going on. You don't necessarily have to, though. But I really do feel like Kieran Gillen is kind of the natural successor to the tone that Hickman set out. Jerry Duggan's been doing a great job on the X-Men book. I'm really liking it, but you can tell it's different. Tonally, it's different from what Hickman set out. This feels like Kieran Gillen feels like he's like the understudy to Hickman. And having read some of his other books, like Wicked and Divine and stuff like that, he has the mind that works in this kind of machinations, the way that Hickman does. Not to the extent that Hickman does, but it's in like the same thought process. And so it felt right at home with that. It felt like it linked up in a way that I thought was great. And I mean, you guys have said, we'll get into the artwork more in a little bit, but what I really enjoyed were the parade of characters that came through here, who's who, not just the Quiet Council, but just the different people that you get who are applying for a job, and we'll get into why they're applying for that job later. That is fun. It just reminds you of how many folks are around in the peripheral, and it ties into some of the other books in really cool ways. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I cannot wait to read the second chapter. But let's kind of get into it, shall we? So the book kicks off in 1919. Actually, it kicks off in the city of Paris. So we're going back in time a little bit, just really to drive home the point that some of these figures, some of these characters, even before the X-Men were quote-unquote immortal, before they had resurrecting type powers, they were alive, kicking and doing crazy clandestine shit way back in the day.
Well, and they also call them, the ageless X-Men in this book?
Yep.
So
one of them, of course...
Or the ageless mutants, maybe they call them.
I forget which one it is. It's 6 1 half a dozen the other, though. I mean, it's just and especially the one that they feature prominently is Mr. Sinister himself. And the cool thing about Sinister, which they remind you in this book, he chose to be a mutant. He actually had mutated his own DNA to fit into this world. So he's not a naturally evolved mutant. It's his own experiments and his own kind of world made him into this. But there are others that just were mutants and have existed for a hot minute, like Destiny, like Irene Adler herself. And she walks up to Mr. Sinister sitting on a bench inside a nice little fancy park, circa 1919, and they have themselves a little conversation. And it is hilarious, but basically they're talking about the difference between fate and destiny and what's coming down the road. And they're talking about war. They are really laying out the politics that tend to go, throughout the X-Men storyline, and really drive home the fact that make a point that Mr. Sinister is just the dude who picks the winning side. It's not the winning side because he picks it. He's the guy who waits and sees what side the coin is going to land on before he checks into it. But these individuals are clandestine spy type figures, and they've always been at each other's throats in some capacity. Because as they have this conversation, Sinister starts to gag, and just nastiness starts to pour out of him, and he has been poisoned. In this era, he has been poisoned by Destiny's words about the future. And who pops out of the shadows but Mystique. And you realize that, okay, this type of subterfuge, this type of backhanded politics have always existed with these figures, even before the X-Men really got around to being the X-Men, and these folks really, like before the birth of Krakoa, before the first X-Men team, these people were just nasty. Like they were ready to go. But like I said, it sets the stage for who Sinister is. And in the future, in the present time, Sinister is doing that thing that he does. Yes, he's on the Quiet Council. Yes, he lives on Krakoa. Yes, he's supposed to be part of this community. But he's got his own secrets, including a secret lab where he's manipulating the genetics of the mutants, which is his claim to fame. That's how he started off. Even if all you know of Sinister is what you saw in the cartoon, the first time you see him is he's got his lab. He's working for Apocalypse at that point in time, and he's kidnapping Jean and Scott, and he's manipulating DNA. That's just who he is. And he is the type of character that always feels like he is one step ahead of everybody else. Even when he's not, he has got this gusto about him, and he has never met anyone who's smarter than he is, in his own opinion. If you ask him, he'll tell you. If you don't believe him, ask him again. He'll tell you the second time.
I just want to point out the page that you're on has a turtle and rat version of Sinister.
That's not a rat. That is a hairless cat. Okay. Sinister has a Sphinx cat.
Okay.
Either
way, it looks like a rat. But...
Yeah.
Craig just made a lot of enemies, I think.
If you notice, the Sphinx cat is wearing visors that looks a lot like Cyclops' visor, and that's because Sinister has manipulated that Sphinx cat's DNA and put versions of Cyclops' eyes in that cat.
Yeah, so we're getting a preview of of his cloning and splicing and stuff like that. Just pointing that out there.
Sinister has a kitty with laser eyes. Just because of course he does. But again, like you said, he's talking about how he's one step ahead of everybody, and he calls today, this is, I think earlier in the day, he said this is a red letter day and we're going to find out why. And all through this, you're getting inner monologue, right? Like he's doing the villain monologue thing.
Except only to himself.
Yeah, literally, he can only hear himself. He's bragging. He's braggadocious. He's bragging on himself to himself in his own brain. But this is a big day for, you might be asking what's going to happen. Of all the things that happen in Krakoa, like every day is kind of a big day. But this is the day that Magneto, Mr. Magneto himself, the master of magnetism, just like number 2 on the list. If there was they're not set up to be presidents or vice president.
If he has any other synonyms for
I think he does.
Magneto.
I can think of a few. He is stepping down. He is stepping down off the Quiet Council. Basically, he's resigned. And this is big doings. Like I said, he's like the vice president of Krakoa, essentially. But he's had enough of it. He's just tired that things haven't gone the way he wanted to. He's really pissed off about the Moira situation and how the back channel things that he and Professor X set up didn't work out. Nobody trusts him, obviously, anymore. Everything's falling apart. So he's done. He is going to retire to Araco, obviously go there and hang out, like he's talked to Storm about it. And Kieran Gillen takes this opportunity as he's delivering his last speech to kind of walk you through the Quiet Council and give you an understanding of who all of these folks are. Of course, he starts with Professor X. He goes over to Emma Frost, the White Queen, Sebastian Shaw, Kate Pride. You can't call her Kitty anymore. She's hanging out. Exodus is there doing his thing, just being weird. You've got Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Mystique, Destiny, and of course Sinister himself. And once he has stepped down, what they have to do is figure out how to fill his spot. Of course, because of this is, again, there is a vacuum left in his wake, and people are pissed off and they're mad about him. Half of the Quiet Council wants to wait and allow him to vote on who fills his spot, who is his successor. The other half, the winning half, backdoors him and gets him kicked out. And he doesn't get a say as a member of the Quiet Council who's going to fill his spot. And so they go about the business of starting to hear pitches, so to speak. People are applying for the job. Warren Worthington does. You've got Penance, one of my favorite characters, Monet. Tomi Shishido Gorgon, who is hilarious to me because his pitch is just me. That's all of it. He just gets up and says, "I'm the person that should get this job." Gabriel Summers, Abigail Brand, Hank McCoy, who should not have that position. That dude is just, like evil Hank McCoy has been a twist I didn't know I was ready for. And then, really, really cool, kind of a throwback. You get out of all the characters, the one that seems like she's going to get it, the one that seems like she is a shoe-in for it, is somebody that I haven't seen in a very, very, very long time. She is a mutant, but she's also tied into vampire culture, right? Like she's a master of magic. Like she is very powerful and somebody not to be fucked with. It's Selene, but there's somebody else. Like as quick as it sees that she's supposed to fill this spot, Hope Summers, a member of the Five, one of the keys in the link to the X-Men and mutants' immortality, she steps up and says, "Hey, like we're tired of being cogs in your machine. We're tired of being pawns. We're the ones who keep this island together. At the end of the day, we're the ones that the people have faith in. We need to have a say in the governance of this."
I just want to interject here. When they go to talk to her to convince her that she should put her name in the hat, and talking to her about it, and the way they go about fulfilling that her old name, the Messiah, actually has a meaning that you weren't even realizing was happening is pretty amazing.
And she just kind of, I appreciate that moment because she rejects it.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want to be in that position. And the person that she's talking to, Exodus, I mean, dude's a religious extremist. Right. Like, and she's just like, not only do I want to reject this, I'm uncomfortable with it, but I'm really uncomfortable with it coming from you. Of all people. Like maybe not, but
yet she is.
Yeah, but she realizes that she has to take that job. Like if she doesn't, at least in her mind, things are going to fall apart. And, I think she would have done it no matter who was vying for it. But the fact that it's Selene who is vying for it, I think she especially thinks, okay, I've got to inject myself here and take this away. It's interesting, though, because when we get back to Sinister and they're talking about who's going to fill this seat, and they actually go to take the vote, Sinister's calculating it in his brain. He's like, okay, I know he's counting votes. He's being a whip. And he's saying, I know how these people are going to vote. I know he's going to do that. She's going to do that. But he's trying not to look at Destiny while he's doing this all the time because, Destiny is a precog. She can see what's going to happen in the future or versions of it, depending on how it happens, because nothing is solidified. And so he thinks he knows, but she throws a wrench into all of this because she votes no when he thought she was going to vote yes. And it completely throws off his whole thing to the point that he actually has to backpedal. He has to change the way that he not only was going to vote, but he voted. He'd already said it to keep his lines in motion. And of course, everybody side-eyes that, right? Because they're like, okay, he's Sinister. Why wouldn't you side that? You've got to, like, you're working an angle here. And they, so now we have Hope on the Quiet Council, which is going to benefit a lot of people. It's going to not benefit a lot of people. Like it rubs some folks the wrong way,
including Selene.
Yeah, very much including Selene, which she is very quick to let Professor X know about as they quietly talk on the coast of Krakoa. And she unleashes all kinds of hell because she has not. She is punishing them essentially because she is a person that has magic and has these abilities. So she summons up a kaiju. Or I guess you call it a kaiju. I don't know what else you would call it. That just goes to starts blowing fire out of its face and starts ripping up the island. The X-Men all do what they're supposed to do and jump in the action, except for Mr. Sinister, who quietly, walks, realizes like he's not going to stay here and fight. He's got other stuff he needs to do.
As Sinister does.
Yeah, like this, he's not that kind of guy.
Hands dirty.
He's got other ways that he does his battles, and he goes back to his lab. which, like you said, he's, as with the Sphinx Cat, he's been manipulating with DNA and like isolating these things that make people's powers work and weaponizing them. So one cool moment, he like grabs a gun off the wall and it's like a double barrel shotgun just in case because he's Sinister. But he starts looking at, and what you realize is that he has
the last 2 pages that Matt was talking about.
He has manipulated everything and has been working on full-blown clones and has cloned somebody. And I'll let you guys decide if we want to actually spoil this. But he has manipulated a clone that is a key figure in this overarching story. So, like I said, I will
Let's just
leave
put
that.
it this way. He's known what the future is without knowing. And without him being himself being a precog. He's known what the future is, and he's also able to replicate things and redo things if they don't turn out his way. And so that's really what you need to know, I guess.
And he, where the linchpin got pulled, he made backups.
Yep.
So I think that's a good way to leave it. Yeah, I was stunned.
You guys watch Rick and Morty? In the last season, there was an episode where Morty had a save button, and he could redo things and just go back to where he was. That's what Sinestro's done. He's made himself a video game. Sinister has made himself a save button.
Yeah.
And he can just go back to where he wants to. It's very sinister.
Yeah, the deviousness of this storyline is very, very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
So evil.
Carrion writes the mustache twirler really well. I feel like there's
I'm going to go on even further. He wrote every character in this book.
Oh, of course.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Emma Frost, oh my God, he nailed that character. Yeah. At least from Sinister's point of view, because it's all from his point of view. But her smugness and her
pettiness.
Petty, but she's petty in this case for a reason.
Right, yeah, she's 100%.
I wouldn't use the word petty.
She is a petty person, but in this case, she's justified in her feelings towards the quote unquote patriarchy that's running Krakoa. She has every reason to be distrustful of them, especially in the light of the events of things that have just happened.
Yeah.
So, but he writes every character very well, including and especially Sinister.
Yeah. Yep.
I really appreciate how he made like this story in general. Now that and we talked about this when House of X Powers of 10 first came out. It felt strange that you would throw all of these folks into the same contingent because they've fought each other. Like there's enemies, there's good guys, there's heroes, there's villains. And now they're all living on an island as if they're a monolithic society, and they're not. Even the Quiet Council in and of itself, these 12 members, not a monolithic group of people. They seem to be splitting off into they're split off inherently into factions. They're all based off the seasons. You've got summer, spring, winter, and autumn. That the three on each. But there's a split between what seems like good guys and bad guys, and you've got a few people who are swing votes in there. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate how it's a metaphor for the overall dynamics that you're seeing on Krakoa. For me, if you continue to think about this story, especially featuring Krakoa, as being kind of a metaphor or, in a way, retelling the story of real life things like Israel and how Israel works, and they've got their parliamentary government and stuff like that. Like it just like the real life aspects of it that makes it really intriguing. But I love that he chose Sinister to tell the story through, because it would have been very easy to pick somebody like Kate Pryde. It would have been very easy to pick. I think it would have been harder to pick Professor X, because I like that we don't know what's happening in Professor X's head. But for the dude who is like, being the character who, like I said earlier, thinks that he's one step or two steps ahead of everybody, and who just appreciates himself more than anything. He's very conceited. To tell the story through him and get this kind of mustache twirling villainess monologue,
definitely,
whose plans keep getting like wrenches thrown into the machinery. It is hilarious to me. like I just found myself continuing to literally laugh out loud. As these, the best laid plans, man, it just gets cracked in half.
How'd you feel about him calling crap. Peter.
Colossus.
A potato farmer?
A potato farmer.
Yeah. I didn't care for that at all.
It was funny because
I figured it would bother you a little bit.
It was funny because in the panel before that, he was talking about how Storm didn't really like him. That's okay because he used to be a raging racist and he earned it. And then he calls Peter a potato farmer.
Well, he says he cut the racism out of his head because when you're better than everybody else, it doesn't matter what groups they divide themselves into.
Amazing.
Which was one of the great lines. One of the other great lines in this book was when Destiny said, "There is no future. There is no destiny."
Yeah.
It was like, because you never know what she knows.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is like when things change, it's the butterfly effect, right? And that's a really hard concept to write anyway, but it makes it even harder when the multiverse exists. And that was one thing that Hickman at the end has done really, really, really well, is show you that here's the different things that she could possibly see, and that's why we have to keep her off the board. And to have that line, and to have that understanding that the future is not set in stone, and she sees the different possibilities, and she has to calculate that. Like, I don't think I'd ever realized just how, I don't know if devious is the right word for Destiny, because like Destiny's always been a really cool character and somebody who's fun to play with, but I don't think I've ever just realized like how calculating she has to be. Like, has to be.
Well, whatever you share, you can either make it self-fulfilling or you can cancel it. So that, which was Moira's whole objection to her being alive during this, because if she could change things, she could potentially screw them up.
Yeah. Well, and it makes even more sense now that we know, from previous books, that we know Moira's main secret is that no matter what happens, the X-Men don't win, the mutants don't win. Like they're not actually fighting the clock.
But as Sinister says, 10. What did he say? 10. A sample size of 10 is not nearly enough.
Yeah. Like he's. He's such a fun character.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember the exact phrase he used, but yeah.
No, it's. I'm going to love this story. I hope.
My only concern, and it's a small concern, but my only concern with this is we just got away from the X-Men books being just a political book and having some action in it. I'm worried we're going to go 2 steps back to it just being that again. Now, it may be that for a few issues and then develop into stuff, because there's certainly enough going on here that it's got that potential to move away from just the political stuff in the background is always going to be there in X-Men books. It's just part of the story. But we had, 3 years of political intrigue with, and I mean, when I'm saying not our world politics, X-Men politics. Right. And it was fun. It was a good story, but I want some action in my X-Men books too.
I think you're going to get that, but this is going to be a very heavy story, heavily drawn off politics. And I don't say that just based off of what I read in my history with Kieran Gillen's work before. He was on David Harper's podcast. David Harper does a really good interview podcast. It's all he does is interview creators. And it was either that or if it was Graphic Policy. I'm pretty sure he's been on both of them recently. But he was talking about like his plans for this book. Obviously not giving too much away, but he really is roping into the this is going to have almost the kind of feel as like the first season or two of like the West Wing, where you have those people who are going in and in the mix trying to make things happen.
So it doesn't mean it's not an intriguing story.
No, for sure.
It's just I also want, as long as we have the other books that have some action happening in them, it's fine.
Well, I think you're going to get some in this too.
Yeah.
I mean, kaiju.
I mean, you got kaiju at the end of this, but I think you guys probably know what I'm saying on that. The Hickman stuff was very much, which Hickman tends to do anyways, but it was very much just that without the other.
The Hickman stuff was like living on the proverbial corkboard with all the pins and the string tied to it. I mean, that's just what he is, and what he was doing with this. And that's where I said earlier, I really do feel like Gillen's kind of the natural successor to that. I think he does that really well, especially like I said, if you've read Wicked and Divine, there's a lot of that.
But it also had action.
It had a lot, and that's what I'm saying. He can do both, so I think you're going to get a fair taste of both.
And again, based on Wicked and Divine and all of these people with powers and that, and what they, you did have all the political stuff going on in that book where they're against each other, but you also have the action of them interacting with each other. So
I also expect
he can definitely pull it off.
I'm kind of expecting to see him not only go into the quote-unquote politics of it, and is connected to the politics of it, but at some point I could see him putting characters like Nightcrawler and Exodus head-to-head, because in a sense, both of those individuals are religious extremists to some extent or the other. I mean, Nightcrawler's got his own religion, cult, I don't know what you call it. Like, he's got that happening right now, which
Sinister call it is totally not religion.
Right, yeah, like, and he's so steeped in Catholicism, and it's rooted out of that. It's almost like a support group that's based in Christianity. And they actually talk about Jesus being a mutant in this book, apparently.
They did.
Yeah, like that was interesting. That was done in that conversation about the messianic label. Let's talk about the art, because we have talked about the story, but we have seen time and time again incredibly strong artists in this latest chapter of X-Men, and I still think that visually speaking, this is like the best X-Men has been across the board in a long, long time.
Sure.
And on the different titles. I mean, you've got some really strong people like succeeding each other. And for the most part, there haven't been a mix. It hasn't been much of a miss in any of the books. It's all been really strong. My favorite in this, though, and it's just like the covers, is the backgrounds that you see, like all the minutia that you see in the background that kind of give you the taste and texture of what it's like living on this island. Not only just because of the characters that are hanging out in the background, but it's just like Craig said, the turtle and the Sphinx cat that have the diamonds in their head. They don't explain that; they're just there. They explain it towards the end of the story, but they just show it to you. When they've got Selene up there talking, and she jumps in to whip up some magic, and she's got the pentagram happening. When they show the 5, and they show them in the process of resurrecting people, and just what you see when the face of Krakoa just kind of shows up in the background, just to remind you that they are on a sentient, living, breathing, godlike vessel of Earth. Just that subtle reminder of like the scope of things here is stunning in this book. The ephemera that's wrapped around it just gets me. I could flip through this book all the time, and you just continue to find something new on every page that shows you, and also does a really good job of showing you just how big this island is. And talk about segues, it loops back into the conversation we were having earlier. When you're having these one-on-one conversations, it's just like being in AT&T Arena when nobody's in there, right? Like, you lose scope of how big it is. You really start to get a feel for how big Krakoa actually is when they broaden out and they show you just what all you can fit into the backgrounds. It's masterclass. It's great work. There are so many pages in this that I would just love to have, like, fight folks over. And still, for me, some of the best pages in this book are the first few pages. The Paris 1914 sitting on a park bench.
Yeah.
Reminiscent of those pages between Moira McTaggart and Professor X from the very beginning. Kind of gets you in that feel.
From House of X.
There's no doubt that visually and narratively, this feels very much like House of X, Powers of X. And it's literally just a continuation of that. Mm-hmm. We're now seeing what was hinted at in that with Sinister's plans. Mm-hmm.
So my question to you guys is do you have a favorite member of the Quiet Council?
For me, it's always Nightcrawler.
Always Nightcrawler?
Oh, interesting.
Very cool.
He's always been one of my favorite mutants. And it's that war he's at within himself.
Mm-hmm. Mine was Magneto, but
yeah,
gonna have to find a new one now.
I wonder what he's going to get up to while he's hanging out on Araco.
Man.
Storm's got to be nervous about that, right? Like, Storm's got to be kind of...
I bet Storm doesn't get nervous.
Yeah, very few things make Storm nervous.
Yeah, I don't think Storm gets nervous, bro.
You know what shortens out magnetism?
Electricity. Lots of things.
Know what happens when
Oh, don't say it. Don't say it.
What happens when you electrocute a man?
No, don't say it. I think mine... Mine's going to be... It's hard for me not to say Sinister because he's probably my, like... I just enjoy reading him so much, but... Mystique in this is...
I love Mystique.
She's such...
I've always loved that character.
That character design is freaking amazing.
Oh, it's timeless.
Oh,
like
God,
they
I love
like
that character design of Mystique.
you can like you look at all these people and you look at how their costumes have changed over the years. Mystique's never needs to. Man, like that outfit and that look.
Emma, other than Emma's wearing more clothes than she used to, looks very similar. That she always has as well. But yeah, Mystique's a classic design.
It just wins time and time again. So yeah, that is Immortal X-Men #1. You got any closing or final thoughts?
Storm with a mohawk or with long hair?
Man, any which way she wants to do it.
I mean, that's fair. Some people have a preference on that.
I'm Mohawk Storm. I think Mohawk has never looked better than her punk rock era.
I've always liked long hair Storm. Yeah. But I mean, again, however she wants to wear it, I'm good with it.
Yeah,
it's a cool design.
Who's going to tell Storm no? Certainly not me.
Yeah, right.
Not more than once, anyway. So,
I don't want to know what it feels like to be electrocuted.
go stick your tongue.
Yeah, good.
On
I'm
battery.
staying on it. If you're minutely an X-Men fan, pick this book up and read it because, again, we're back at that. I would say beginning or a fresh start to the existing X-Men. It's a reboot without rebooting.
And the X-Men storyline is unlike anything else going on in comics.
Oh, yeah.
That's also really nice. It's unique among storylines and anything else on the shelf that I've seen anyway. Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for everything that's being produced today.
Quite frankly, it's doing the thing that Marvel should be, and DC too, but they should be doing line-wide, which is reminding you that this is a shared universe and that there are all kinds of things happening here. And it's doing a really great job in the X-Men office. Yeah. Like all the books do a really good job of sharing stories and like keeping things going and tying into each other. And they're all being written for the most part by different people. So it just lets you know how good of a job that editorial office is doing, which that has not always been the case.
The fact that they've been able to pull the X-Men out of the Marvel universe as a whole, while still having them, of course, be part of it. But they've pulled all of this story out of the Marvel universe as a whole and are able to tell wholly X-Men stories.
Right. Yeah.
And, again, we can talk about the brilliance of Hickman and that he was able to reboot this entire franchise and keep all of the existing stories that happened are still canon. So it was just brilliantly done all around, and now it's just continuing. So jump on. This is a perfect starting point for those of you that have been on the edges of getting back into X-Men.
Yeah.
It's fun stuff. Well, speaking of fun stuff, I'm hoping you guys can talk about some fun stuff this week. I would love to hear y'all wax poetic about some books that we might not have read.
Oh, get poetic, Craig.
Do it.
I said get poetic.
He once knew a man from Nantucket.
So I really debated if I should talk about this book or not.
Okay.
This is the collected works of Filler Bunny by Johannan Vasquez, I guess is how you say his name.
Yeah.
You might remember this author because Matt's talked about him previously on Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
And Squee.
And because I love those books, the owner of our local comic book store thought I would like this book. And he wasn't wrong. I laughed my ass off at this book. This book is about a rabbit that is being tortured and experimented on. And all he wants to do is unalive himself. But when he does, and he finally finds the bliss of death, they resurrect him. Because, quite honestly, in very meta moments in this book, the author writes about himself and puts himself into the story, talking about how he's only got 6 pages and he needs 5 more to get a complete story. At one point, the author, also feeling the frustration of trying to put this book together, because this has like 4 books in it. The first book he was going to write in a single night, and that's why it's called Filler Bunny. He had time between 2 projects. And so he made this bunny that was a filler. And it was started off as that, and then the stress of getting this completed got to him to the point that he wanted to unalive himself and threw himself out the window. But because it's a comic book, he then could fly.
Oh.
At one point, he draws himself and he says, "And I keep morphing into a pickly schlong thing. This sucks." He's drawing himself, and he draws himself as a pickle because he's just bored and doesn't know what to do. And literally, that's the way this whole story goes. There's a monkey in it called Anal Monkey, who is exactly what you think he is. He's a monkey that lives in the bunny's ass. Yeah. They make the awkward. Bunny eat sounds rectal itchy. Tissue at one point. It's laugh out loud funny when you're reading this. Mm-hmm. Matt informed me earlier today that this is the same guy that did Invader Zim.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's very much
How
dark.
so, Caleb?
Well, because it's that off-the-cuff, just kind of balls-to-the-wall wackiness. Now, Invader Zim obviously is a little bit more guarded because it's a thing for children. But, yeah. I mean, like you know, the Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and Squee, like this fits in, like, you know, the humor is there. I think this gets a little bit more I don't even know, inappropriate is not the right word, a little bit more NC-17 on some of the stuff, but like the type of humor is there, and the timing and the artwork makes sense. Like I'm looking at some of the pages that Craig has that he's showing us, and there's definitely the Zim vibe there.
Well, it's, you know, before I realized it was the same creator as Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and Squee, that's what I was going to compare it to.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is. One of them's, you know, the return or the Revenge of Filler Bunny. Mm-hmm. The next book is Filler Bunny and the worst book yet. And this book has a little notice at the beginning of it. Be prepared to love aborto. Aborto is exactly what you think aborto would be. If you do not like dark comedy, don't buy this book. If you can laugh at dark comedy and dark humor, then you may enjoy it. Trigger warning, there's a lot of talk about, you know, suicide and things like that. So be prepared for that. And it's not all, you know, this was written in 2004. The world's changed a little bit in, you know, or 2014, I guess. The world's changed a little bit in the past 10 years on what's socially acceptable. This book isn't always socially acceptable. I'm just telling you that. But it is funny. I mean,
I think that's fine as long as you know, like, as long as you know what you're getting into. I mean, irreverence is not wrong, you know, and there's a fine line there too. But it depends on the audience too. And
that's why I'm saying putting a trigger warning on it. You know, if I'm going to recommend it, I'm going to tell you it's got that stuff in there. But it's if you enjoyed Squee or Johnny the Homicidal Maniac or Invader Zim, you're going to find this funny.
All of his stuff that I've read anyway is all dark humor and you know, because Squee wasn't about an emotionally, I mean, if you want to call it what it is, it's about an emotionally abused little child. And then Johnny the Homicidal Maniac's pretty self-explanatory what that's about. You know, but so it's very dark humor that you have to remind yourself that, you know, these are done with humorous intent,
right?
And
you can't get up on stage and slap them for it.
It's you know,
I mean, you could, but you would be wrong. So in one of the books in this, when they're forcing him to eat stuff, they force him to eat nuts, you know, metal nuts that go on bolts, not nuts like peanuts, and it kills Anal Monkey because the bolts hit him. But Anal Monkey is still alive in his dead, but still feeling things while in his rectum.
So he's a zombie Anal Monkey?
It's
So one of the things
It's not self-explanatory. You just have to take it for what it is.
It sounds like it's just like a brain flow. Like I know you said this was filler, so he was kind of doing something in the midst of it. It sounds like he sat down in front of a pen and pad and just started doing a brain dump.
He was if you believe the meta scenes in this, he was at a con and had some free time and just started drawing.
Oh, he comes to Arkansas cons, does he?
And he was just trying to fill some time.
Yeah.
And next thing you knew, he decided, well, I'll finish this tonight. Then he got about 7 pages in and couldn't figure out where to go.
Yeah.
Matt's reading pages out of it, chuckling and shaking his head now.
I mean,
you feel bad almost laughing at some of this,
Yeah.
but it's impossible not to laugh at some of it. So
he makes really, really off-color. He makes a really off-color joke, and then the next panel is that of a cricket. And it says, "This panel brought to you by Chirpy, the official mascot of Uncomfortable Silences." I mean,
he makes notes on some of the panels.
the notes on the panels are gold.
Yeah, like he writes them upside down so that you know that they're writer's notes. There's one where he starts to write and he scribbles it out and he says, "Never mind, I was going to write something but changed my mind."
God, it's amazing. This side note I just found. Spiked frame means hardcore around one panel. I mean,
it's super funny, but it is meant for a certain type of humor.
One of the things I always wonder about these types of book is what the actual editorialization, like the editorial process is. Like, is there?
I don't think there was any on this.
So, I mean, we don't know, right? Like, so, like this, because it sounds like it's a brain dump. It sounds like it's like free flow. But then he had to have gone back and like worked through that in order to make it into a comic, right? So like, what is that editorial process? Like, how do you know how to make the mechanics of that work?
We know the foreword was done by a man sitting on a toilet while he wrote it.
I mean that's perfect.
So here's the indicia. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents either are the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously, and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental, except for Filler Bunny. Filler Bunny is the only truth in a universe of lies.
Well, and on the first page of the book, it gives you a warning. This is the best book you will ever read. You'll never want to read anything else. If you ever want to enjoy anything else in your life, don't read this book.
This will change everything. All food will taste of dirt. Human touch will be no more special than rude brushings against street people. Sex will be not unlike lazy shifting and dirty laundry.
Yeah, it's
just
keep it. I know you want to read.
I love those postmodern flair in these kind of books.
It's funny. It took me 20 minutes, half hour to read the entire book. It's not hard reading, of course. It's fun. It's dark humor. If you're gonna read it, be prepared for that. Outside of that, just enjoy it and laugh.
Yeah.
These kind of books have trained me to read the copyright sections too, because they are hilarious.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that they put in there is funny as hell.
It's kind of like watching Monty Python and not watching the pre-credits.
Right. It's you
miss a lot of the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So
very cool.
Enjoy it. Let me know what you think, man.
Absolutely.
Somewhat apprehensive, but yes.
I've never met an apprehensive Matt Trogdon. This is kind of worrisome.
What I flipped through, what I saw, I was like, oh boy.
It's not for the weak.
A week of heart.
Yeah.
So my book of the week is from Marvel, X-Men Unlimited, Latitude. This is number 1. I don't know if this is a one-shot, offshoot of the X-Men storyline, or if this is going to be somewhat ongoing. We'll find out.
I don't remember seeing that in previews.
This is an oversized issue. So I'm just going to read the opening to this book. The Peak, home of the mutant extraterrestrial organization SWORD. 1 hour ago, a cloaked AIM extraction team broke into the Peak, full of bad intentions and equipped with the very worst of human technology. Apparently, we didn't see them coming until they had already arrived, and we didn't know what they wanted until they had already gotten away. Now 3 mutants are their prisoners, and God knows what kind of evil science madness they have planned for them. Some nations would call these acts of war that demand a response. Not me. I don't care much for war. It's too big, too impersonal. I gatewayed onto the station 5 minutes ago. Retribution and rescue all wrapped up in one package. And if for some reason you've been hiding under a rock and don't know who I am, well, I'm Wolverine, and I'm the best there is at what I do. And with that, Wolverine...
all I heard was the Dump Dumb, and then produced by Dick Wolf came up in my brain. So
Wolverine is dropping onto this AIM spacecraft. And but what's funny, so after that setup, he immediately face plants onto the outer shell of the AIM spaceship. So what this story is obviously Wolverine is a one-man rescue mission to get these 3 mutants back. And this is an excellent representation of the character. Specifically, it shows that, Wolverine is the dirty deeds doer of the X-Men and always has been, and he's like Mr. Get It Done. But what he does not have is finesse.
He's about as subtle as a sledgehammer.
He has no finesse about him whatsoever, and that is a great opener, and that really sets up the pace for this book. It's him face planting onto the front, and then picking himself up and carrying on with his mission. And as he breaks in through AIM, he basically opens up a side. He uses the claws and opens up a side on the shell, and a lot of these AIM soldiers are sucked into the void. First thing he encounters is a computer, and grunts when he sees it. Doesn't know how to use computers.
Does he do the hunt and peck typing?
No, he punches the computer.
As he should.
And he says, I love this. I hate computers. All the worst garbage comes out of them.
I'm picturing that scene from Zoolander where they're like beating on the computer.
Yeah. This
book is not in my...
Yeah, Jonathan Hickman wrote this. Declan Shalvey did the art.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah. And it is so good. So Wolverine's making his way through, he's trying to find these missing mutants, of course. Once again, we see why he is sent on these kind of missions. He is extremely, if not impossible, to kill.
Yeah.
And he is not going to stop, and he's not going to be called for backup. I mean, he's going to get the job done. So at one point, he decides he's got to get some questions answered, because one of the things he points out is we need to know why they did this. And Wolverine is not known, once again, for finesse. And he's not really someone you're going to send into the box, as the cops would call it, to get to, strategically pry information out of a person. So
it's bad cop if you send him in.
Right. So he isolates an AIM soldier and says, I need to know why you did this. And of course the AIM soldier's like, I'm not telling you anything, mutant scum. Wolverine punches him in the face and asks him again. The guy says, I'm not telling you anything. Punches him in the face, asks him again. So this carries on. His interrogation technique of
For
punching
16 panels.
Actually, no. 24 panels.
Holy shit.
Of him asking the same question and punching the guy in the face. 24 panels. It's amazing. And the guy's face, gets in worse shape as this goes on. I was laughing so hard at this. This is
hilarious.
This is amazing.
I love the color differentiation in the background. How it goes like green or like orange when he's getting hit to green when he's not.
Yeah. So that series of panels is just absolutely amazing. So he tells him, basically you have to go down this one elevator shaft to get to the mutant you're looking for. So Wolverine kicks the door open, and once again, showing that this guy will get the job done, but it won't be done cleanly or with finesse. He leaps into the elevator shaft and bounces off one of the walls and clumsily is falling down the elevator shaft. And then he grabs a ledge, sucks on a beer that he found in between bouncing off the walls of this elevator shaft, then continues down until he, once again, with no finesse whatsoever, lands at the bottom. So what he runs across at the bottom is a MODOK mainframe. And MODOK is telling him that, there's no way, I am the utmost encrypted mainframe, and I'm a representation of MODOK's psyche in a mainframe sense of being. So Wolverine just decides he's just going to pop the claws and just start tearing things up. And what's amazing is that the MODOK's like, you're foolish. You think you can... He goes, by my calculations, it'll take you 17 years to get what you want by doing this. And then all of a sudden, his tone quickly changes. And he says, like, as Wolverine is just randomly cutting things, says, wait, I lost the memory of my first genocide. And there, my plans to exterminate all beekeepers and replace them with automatons. No, my copies of the original Star Wars, which are no longer available in stores or streaming. And with that, finally, MODOK says, okay, I'm ready to negotiate. And he does. So, I mean, this book is just so much better than I thought it would be, than it deserves to be.
That's hilarious.
But it's nothing but Wolverine on a mission and excellent character writing. Nightcrawler is one of the mutants to be rescued. Chamber is the other mutant to be rescued.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The third is absconded with before he can get to them. So
they're going to reboot
as the story continues, he's going to be in pursuit of the third mutant, which we don't know who the third mutant is. And again, we don't know what the plans for them were.
I'm going to have to pick this book up, and I'm not sure how I didn't get it, but I will.
Well, just based off the creative team alone, I need that. Like, you give me Declan Shelby drawing that, and that's like, I should have grabbed this. I didn't know about it, but this is the first Hickman written book. Like, those scenes that you were showing me remind me of Warren Ellis. Like, they remind me of the way that he would draw that scene. Like,
Warren Ellis doesn't do much drawing.
Well, would write that scene. Sorry, just the subtle, like, just taking the time to just drive that point home and the bouncing off the walls. Like, that feels very Warren Ellis like to write it that way. And that's the first time I've really had Hickman seen like evidence that he would write like that. That's hilarious.
Oh God, it's so funny, and it's just good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's just. But I didn't expect there to be so much comedy in this book. But there's a lot more funny parts in it I didn't want to spoil. But that 24 panels of him punching the guy in the face and asking the same question until he gets the answer he wants.
So amazing. I have to admit, when you said, and I think I responded this way, that you scared me when you said you were going to talk, because I'm like, wait, I thought that was our roundtable book. Am I on the wrong book?
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a second X-Men book that I didn't see.
I didn't even see this on the shelf when I went in there, so I don't know what's. And it's weird too.
In our local comic book store, there may not be any on the shelf,
and there may not, and that's fine. But it's weird too, because I was under the impression that Inferno was like the last X-Men thing that Hickman wrote, and then we have like him coming out with Declan Shalvey to do this book. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't heard anybody talking about this until now. It's not very often I get like taken off guard knowing something like this exists.
Yeah.
So, which is fun. That's a really cool feeling. Sometimes I forget what that feels like.
Yeah.
So I need to make my way over there and find that.
Easy, Kurt Cobain.
Ooh. Both good and bad reference. I don't know how to respond to that.
Can't go shopping at the secondhand store anymore because it's just no fun finding the deals now that you're rich.
Deep cut. Deep cut. Well, all right. Well, I grabbed a book that Craig has already churned the water for a little bit, and that is Ghost Cage #1.
That was almost 2 hours ago. They forgot about it.
It was an hour and 23 minutes ago,
Gotcha.
or give or take 5 minutes. But no, this was a fun book. I grabbed it based off of Nick Dragata alone, like you said. It is the first issue is a #1. This is a 3-part series.
Can't imagine there's much more to it.
No, it's going to be very, very simplistic. You kind of get a good taste of what I imagine it's going to be. They're wearing the metaphors on the sleeve. It's very fast paced, very action packed, very based off of manga, as Nick Dragata's style is wont to do, and his
for sure
his writing kind of plays into that as well. I mean, you can see where he's drawing his inspiration from.
Not gonna lie, after reading all of those issues of One Piece and then with that drawing style, and it being black and white, there were a couple of times that I read the panels backwards and had to go back and reread it.
Yep. Because it feels like
it feels like manga.
It does. Minus the color, it's got strong like Daniel Warren Johnson feel to it as well, just in its sensibilities. But Craig did a really good job of summarizing kind of what this is. This really is a I appreciate it. This really is it is a good metaphor for corporate espionage. It's a good metaphor for dependence on the different types of oil and how that's been commoditized, how that has been industrialized, and how it's being used as money-making tools, even though it should be a utility in the sense of, like, yes, obviously we think of power as utility, but in the sense of we can't exist as society without it. Society needs these things, and yet we live in a really, whether or not it's functional or not, it's a difference of opinion, but a capitalist system that takes these things that it needs to exist and then prices it out, or that does it in a way that is terrible for the environment and just for us to continue to survive on this planet. But so I'm actually going to jump to kind of the middle of the story and talk about kind of this main character that we don't see for the first 10 pages or so. And that is this character who works in, essentially he is the guy who calls you on the phone, or who you call on the phone if you're having a tech problem. He is the guy that tells you, hey, did you turn it off and turn it back on again? He's tech support, which is, as you might imagine, not exactly the greatest job that you can have. And his name is Doyle. And I say his name because Doyle, I think, is... Yeah,
I wasn't sure if they were male or female. But
or none of the above. Yeah. But Doyle, in my brain, automatically defaults to being a male-gendered name, and that's not necessarily true. But Doyle is very much drawn to be kind of an asexual in appearance, so we really don't know. But they are just chilling. They're chilling doing their job, and all of a sudden alarms start going off, and they're supposed to get out of the building. But Doyle is a good employee, does good work for the company, and is dedicated, and is going to climb that corporate ladder. And so they have to continue to sit down and to do the things. They're not done. And Doyle just got another alert, and Doyle has to do the tech support thing, or maybe not get a promotion or something like that, even though literally the building is falling down around them. Well, what is that building? The building that they are working in is Ohm Tower. And this is essentially, in this world, you can think of Ohm Tower as a center point of energy creation. This is not like the coal-burning power plant down the street. This is not like the hydroelectric dam blocking the river. This is all of that encompassed into one giant spire that connects the world. And interestingly enough, this story, the other protagonist in this story, antagonist, protagonist, I don't know that any label actually can adhere to that person, is an older scientist / eco-terrorist who has created this artificial intelligence, this sentient, I don't know if it's an AI, if it's a robot, it's this figure that is completely like stalky and stick-like with a giant eyeball on its head, all clad in black, but it is called Sam. And he basically gives life to Sam. And Sam achieves sentience when Sam's container, this sphere that it was housed in, busts through the walls of Ohm Tower and activates. And then, as Craig mentioned, it's kind of like this version of... you remember the latest Judge Dredd, which is based off of a Japanese film called The Tower, I think is what it was called.
The
Raid, yeah. Where they are walking up through the building and there's different bosses and challenges. And that's essentially the way that Nick Dragata and his co-writer Caleb Goller have conceptualized this. But surprisingly, surprisingly Doyle, that is, this message that Doyle got was from the old scientist, the thing that kept Doyle in the room. The old scientist, number one, who's a jackass. He's a dick. Even if he is trying to fight against the evils of coal power and
I don't think that's unless I read it, and I maybe read it differently. I think he's the CEO of the company, and he's trying to make the world dependent upon a new type of energy.
Oh, I might have missed that point. I don't know that I caught the point.
And he's actually terrorizing his own company.
I didn't pick up on that.
And maybe I'm wrong, but that was the way I read it.
That's an interesting twist.
I need to reread it and see, because I got a different take on it.
That is an interesting twist
because of the fact that he's promising Doyle this is their way up through the company.
Yeah. Well, no, and I picked up on that part. I thought that he was, in my brain, and in the sarcastic way that I read this, and in the way that it's poking fun at like this corporate culture, I thought the old man was essentially making fun of Doyle to Doyle's face and saying all the things that you need to say.
And maybe, but I took it as the ghost bud or whatever it is a...
Well, it's that little figure that they show you when you're hiring in, and you watch all the videos.
It's like the
right?
clock in Loki.
Yeah, exactly. So it's there is a little ghost that pops up and walks around, and it is, like you said, the clock in Loki, or those, if you've ever been hired into somewhere and they show you the videos that you watched and when you orientate, silly little cartoons.
In the old Microsoft.
Exactly, and it's walking Doyle through everything. And Doyle has to pick up this little computer and put it on his back, and he has to accompany Sam as Sam goes through this adventure, regardless of who the old man is. And that is a very interesting way to think about that.
I may be wrong, but that was the way I read it. I don't know that it says either way.
I think it's a hell of an idea. I like it. So in my brain, I'm going to go with it for a little bit till it tells us otherwise. But I like that he has orchestrated all of this to make kind of this buddy cop adventure, almost a Calvin and Hobbes-esque like spirit to the story, as they talk about things like the way that we build power, how we do it, and where they're inevitably going with it. In this story, as they're working their way up the tower, they face Cole. That is essentially the first Titan. There is a level where there's literally again, kaiju made out of coal that Sam has to jump in and fight.
Again, very manga-like.
Yeah, this book is so... And Nick Dragata works all digital. Like, none of this was like drawn originally. But
it's really unfortunate because I love some pages out of that book.
But there is just so much digital zip tone done in this book, and you guys know I'm a whore for zip tone. Like, I love, like, you give me zip tone, I'm a happy camper. As they battle this giant behemoth Cole, and Sam just, punches are thrown, they rip into each other. The next level is hydro. It's hydropower. It's water that they have to get through. Things that block up dams or block up rivers, flood zones. We think of hydro energy being relatively clean, but it's not necessarily as good for the environment as it possibly could be. Where they're going with this, you can imagine. I imagine they're going to go fight nuclear power. Who knows if they're going to fight wind power or something like that. But there's 3 issues to this. They're working their way up. As simplistic as the story is, because it's really it is very simplistic. It's tongue in cheek and it's kind of on the nose. There are some moments in this book that really do grab you. Like there's a scene in this book where they're fighting the hydro monster or whatever it is, and they literally have to pull the plug and create this whirling vortex as the water's all washed out and goes down.
I love when the hydro monster tells them that. You put your filth in me and flush me down the toilet.
It's hilarious the way that they do that, though. But while the vortex is sucking down and Doyle is, obviously can't breathe. Doyle doesn't have gills. You feel the stakes of that. You kind of you get connected to this character really, really quickly. So as action-packed and fast-paced and kind of on its nose as this book is, it really does entice you to latch on emotionally to these figures. And in a way, by the end of the story, you almost feel sorry or sad for Sam, because Sam, was just literally born 5 minutes ago, and
he's a beta version, but
is a tool, is a tool in somebody else's game, and is being asked to do all kinds of things against the for good, maybe, but it's it has to jump right into fight. Yeah. So there's no autonomy there. And for Doyle as well, and Doyle's starting to realize this. And by the end of the first book, for example, I think we've seen Doyle turn a corner on how Doyle conceptualizes, or
the old man calls Doyle foil.
Yeah, changes his name through the whole thing. Doyle's just kind of pissed off at this point and is through playing games. Again, the one-liners that make fun of the quote-unquote corporate speak, at the very end of the page, they really just threw us into the deep end, huh, Sam? I say we're exceeding expectations. They asked us to climb to the top. Well, we'll see you at the top. And then Doyle's just clad, ready to go to war. It's
at the beginning,
funny.
They give Doyle a gun.
Yeah.
And Doyle says, "Why do I need a gun?" In the ghost that Bud says, "Oh, don't worry, it only has 1 bullet in it."
There are some dark moments, but no, this book was really fun. Again, I picked it up with almost no expectation, because I'd never read a book that Nick Dragata had written before. I don't know if this is the first thing that Nick Dragata has co-written, and I don't know who Caleb Gollner is. I don't think I've ever read a book by them. Really, really well done. I mean, low-key, I also think it's hilarious that they had Russ Wooten do the colors for the cover, but the book is also, there's no color in the book, and you've got a master colorist like Russ Wooten. Just
I think, didn't Russ Wooten do East of West colors?
I believe so, yeah. But this book doesn't need color. Like this book is... it's a manga feel. It's written, it's drawn, it's even the speak bubbles, whatever you want to say, they're all drawn as manga style. Well, and that's what I love about using zip tone or like zip tone filters on stuff like this. It gives the book the texture that the color otherwise could or would. It's just it is super fun. I can't wait to see what the other 3 issues.
Yeah, I 1000% got on it because of Nick Dragota. Yeah. I love his art. So,
and it's similar, like you said earlier. There are similar designs here to what we've seen Nick Dragota do before.
Oh, the old man straight up looks like the old cowboy from East of West.
Yeah, the old antebellum Southern dude. The eyeball thing, like that's cool. But dude, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I can't wait to see what they do. Favorite part in this book, and you see it on the cover, but there is a canary in the coal mine that just falls over, and you just see like a little tweet exit its body. So go pick this book up. I think you'll really enjoy it if you like manga. Maybe you're not which I don't imagine you're listening to the show if you don't like comics, but you like manga. Maybe you do. I don't know. But if you are hesitant to pick up quote unquote Western style comics, but you love manga, this book's for you. If you like books like the stuff you see from Daniel Warren Johnson or Riley Rossmo or a ton of other artists, you're going to enjoy this. So that's definitely my promotion for the week. I really want more people to read this book. So I think it would make a killer animated series.
Yeah.
Or animated film.
Well, one thing I like about it is the fact that it is a limited series.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think they can take books like these and run them too long.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've all read those books that we love, and about 30 books in, you're like, could you end it already? It's a great book, but it really doesn't need another 10 issues.
And the cool thing is Nick knows that. So you have 2 quote-unquote villains in this book. Like, he fights 2 different types of characters in this book. They could have spread that out over 2 issues. Mm-hmm. But I think he wants to tell this kind of condensed, fun story. Mm-hmm. I wonder if he was in between projects. Or
sometimes you just have an idea that's only 3 issues on.
And I know he's got 2 kids, and this was written obviously during the pandemic, and so things were happening and they were busy. Our buddies over at 11 O'Clock Comics actually interviewed him. So if check out that interview,
awesome.
Go over there. It's fun stuff. So thoroughly enjoy it. So go pick it up. I'm glad that you liked it as well. I didn't know if anybody else would read this.
No, I did. In fact, when I got here today, we could have very easily ended up both with the same book.
I was scared that, I was already ready to... I was going to talk about Black Hammer if that had been your book of the week.
It was funny because I told Matt, I'm like, I haven't decided what out of these books is going to be my roundtable or my book of the week yet.
Well, I mean, we're men of fine taste. We're connoisseurs of the comic arts, if you will.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, that's all that I have on that book. If you enjoyed the conversation that we've had, if you have liked this, and we hope you have, because hell, I did. I loved it. It feels good having Craig back at the table with Matt and I. I know Matt agrees. But if you want more of this, and you are on the social medias, if you have Facebook, if you have Instagram, Twitter, come hang out with us in all those spots. We have a small but fun footprint everywhere. Come check us out. If you have anything you want to talk about, maybe you're not on social media, but you want to reach out to us, we have an email address. You can shoot us an email, southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you. We love building this community. It's what made us friends. It's what has connected us to a whole bunch of other people. And obviously we like talking about the comics and the wrestling and the music and the funny books and this, that, and the other, the manga, movies, TV shows like Moon Knight that just came out. I'm curious at some point to hear what you guys thought about that, but all of it. And we're all talking about that in our various social media platforms. So join us there. And I think the best thing that we can do is just end this thing, land this plane the way that we always do, and kind of give each other and the folks at home a taste of what we're going to pick up next week. Something that we are, tentatively excited about grabbing off the shelf on Wednesday or Tuesday. So what do you guys got for us?
So the book I have is, again, another collected edition like last week.
Very cool.
This is a book I didn't know existed, but apparently it's a new printing of it. And it's the Annotated Sandman hardcover volume 1, which collects the first 20 issues of Sandman. and it's oversized with notes, it says, on every panel and page by page that gives you hidden meanings and what both the artists, which in the first 20 issues, there's probably 10 different artists on this book, and Neil Gaiman are trying to convey to you.
Yeah, that was my question, was who wrote the annotations?
It doesn't say specifically, but it does say hidden meanings, and basically it's like having the DVD with the commentary on.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that it's already sold out online. I'm hoping that our comic book store actually got a few of them, so I could grab one, because I would love to get that more in-depth knowledge of Sandman.
Nice. So this looks really interesting, and why not? Let's just keep this theme going. X-Men from Marvel. This is X-Men Red, #1 by Jason Aaron, Juan Frigeri, and Javier Garron.
I can't wait to see what Jason Aaron screws up in the X-Men universe.
Let's stay positive here. So this is takes place on Araco. Storm knows the Red Planet needs something greater than a queen, but Abigail Brand has other plans, along with an unstable Vulcan on her side and Cable keeping his own secrets. So I am very curious about this.
Abigail Brand's been up to some shady shit lately.
Absolutely.
Some shady shit.
We're going to find out that Magneto's powers only work on Earth because they're like
based off of
from the moon.
Yeah, the magnetic poles of the actual Earth. So when Matt said that he was going to keep this train rolling, I thought he had an annotated edition, and I almost got scared because I was going to disappoint him. But he was talking about, obviously, the X-Men. But I was like, shit, do I need to go find a different book? So the book that I'm going to grab this next week, I'm really excited about because it features a classic character, and this character has been written really well over the few years, and it's a character that, if you like cinema, you've seen pop up in one good movie at least, and that is the Rocketeer. Golden Age character, Golden Age flair to it. I really enjoy when these kind of characters pop up. It's coming out of IDW. So this is the Rocketeer, the Great Race #1. Ace stunt pilot Cliff Seckard has returned from his New York adventure to a West Coast steeped in paranoia over the looming war in Europe, obviously talking about World War II. Having finally had enough of his near-death scrapes as the high-flying Rocketeer, the only thing in Cliff's crosshairs is the Great Race, which is a prestigious winner-take-all air race that runs from California to France. Maybe it's finally time to smarten up and fly straight by taking his best girl Betty to Paris, but other parties want to win the race. I know, I just love, dude, I love that language. Like, I love the way that is laid out. So this is written by Stephen Moody with Lynn O'Grady doing the art. Gorgeous cover of Rocketeer in that like classic pose where it's looking straight down and the Rocketeer's blasting up, like fists clenched, just getting ready with the his flight jacket and the helmet. I'm excited about this. I like when IDW does these cool versions of these characters, and it feels like it's going to have that tone and flair from the original that I like, that kind of classic age feel. So, but that's all I got.
Awesome sauce.
You guys got anything else we need to say before we call it a day and get out of here?
I think we ought to wrap it up.
Let's do it. Again, if you enjoyed this, and we hope you have, come back and hear us next time. We'll be back same place, same time. Tell your friends. If you listen to us on a platform that allows you to leave us a rating and review, we would appreciate it. Not only does it let us know how we're doing, but it lets the algorithm boost us a little bit. We hope you all are well as we get into this next month, springtime. Take your allergy medicines, and if nothing else, go forth and love some comics.
Take your allergy medicines.
That's
not medical advice.
That's